Hey, good afternoon. Can you guys hear me okay? Awesome. Welcome back from lunch. And welcome to Lean and Clean Security Operations using AWS native services. Again, my name is Ramesh Adabala. I'm Solutions Architect from AWS. I'm based in Nashville, Tennessee. And the key objective for me from this entire session is to keep you awake, because you are just back from lunch. So I hope I will do that. I can do that. So, but for you, the key takeaways from this session should be taking a good, very practical, very prescriptive reference architecture for your security when you are creating new accounts, new VPCs. I want to give you a good checklist that you could follow to bootstrap security so that your operations will become easy. So that's what you will take away. And then once you know that, as you release the account or AWS account for the prime time for your applications use, I want you to make sure actually how you can embed security into your application deployments or workload deployments so that your security operations become easy for you. And then we are all happy family, like your development, security, and operations. So that's all I want to really, for you to take away from this entire session is getting the security reference architecture and how to embed in your DevOps cycles, basically. Again, the reason I'm doing this, because I've been with AWS technologies for the last 6+ years, the first 3 years as a customer, but for last 3+ years as an employee of AWS, I've seen many customer journeys through the AWS journeys. I've seen what works, what does not work, and I kind of took a lot of knowledge out of that from my colleagues and from my customers, and then I kind of prepared that material just to give you as a prescriptive guidance so that you have that knowledge when you go back to your teams, so you know what to do exactly like in a more prescriptive way and also more practical way. With that, let's jump in. So let's start with the layered security reference architecture, because I like this because it worked. It worked many times for my customers, and when I do things for my customers, it worked. So that's why I really want to start with the layered security reference architecture. And let's look at what are these layers, right? So when we talk about layered security reference architecture, the outer layer is really about compliance. Depending on the nature of your business and the nature of your data that you are storing, the nature of customers you are dealing, you may have some kind of compliance requirements like HIPAA or PCI or whatever, right? That really dictates, that should be your guiding principle in terms of how you want to design your security for VPCs. But if you don't have any compliance requirements, any specific ones, that's fine too. But compliance is the outer layer that will really drive your reference architecture. And then comes your network. So once you know what compliance requirements you have, what kind of audit requirements you have, what kind of evidence you need to provide, then you got to plan about your networking, because that's the starting point. On AWS, network is the second layer, but when you do the things, that is the first one. In terms of creating your VPCs, creating your hybrid networks between your on-prem data center and into cloud, and how you want to design your edge security, and how you design the security for your network inside your VPC, and who is talking to what, and how you are controlling these doors and paths. So that's the second one, really. And then, if you go a little further, actually, like as you are peeling this security onion, the next layer would be the infrastructure. So once you have a good network setup or posture in your enterprise or in your AWS environment, now you open the gates to set up any virtual servers or any infrastructure. It could be load balancers or servers and storage. So you name it, right? That's where actually like you really need to think about the security of the infrastructure, really. Hey, how do I really make sure the infrastructure I'm putting there, it's secure? And if there is any deviation, or if there is any like a state change from my security or my standard security posture, how do I detect it? That's where really your security for the infrastructure really comes in. And then let's go the last layer in this architecture, actually like the actual workload is the data. Because now you have network, then you have infrastructure, and then you put the data, right? Because without data, there's nothing really. Nobody cares about security because data is what everyone wants it, right? Like when a hacker gets into your environment, so they're all after your gold mine, which is your business intelligence data. So you got to really make sure actually your data is secure. Like it's encrypted everywhere, it's encrypted at rest, it's encrypted in transit. So, and then to cut across all these layers, I have two more things you really need to think about is your identity and access management. Because we are talking about 4 different IAM principles here. One is, how do I secure my AWS access? And then how do I control my server access? And how do I control my application access for my users? And how do I control service-to-service access? Because a lot of times these applications can talk to other services within AWS. You got to make sure that access is also, you are planning ahead in terms of how you do that going forward in a more secure way so that you are not really opening the gates. And then last pillar in this whole layered approach is once you have a plan for everything, you got to monitor. That's where our security operations really comes into the picture in terms of how do I get the visibility into my infrastructure, my network, and my data, and my IAM, everything. It has to one single pane of glass for you guys to really see, like you should be able to sip a drink, sit in an island, should be able to look at this dashboard and see what's happening in your environment. Basically, like let the project teams have fun, let them get excited about the projects, but you as a security operations team, you got to have a good control in terms of what's happening. And when your CISO asks, hey, what's happening in AWS, you should have one place to go to look at, if there is anything critical or anything high severity going on, and you should be able to get that particular status with one click. So that's the nirvana, right? Ultimate nirvana is really you should be able to go to one place and look at everything, and then you should be able to give thumbs up. Right? That's what we are looking at today is really how do we take a very practical and very prescriptive approach to implement this layered security architecture, right? And also, another takeaway you will have is it's all native AWS services. You are not bringing any partner tools. You are not bringing in any favorite tools. You are not bringing any commercial tools. Let's look at how AWS native tools can help you with these layers. And then once you have that initial phase, then you can think about what tools you need, additional tools you need. You might need but let's look at what natively AWS offers you to protect all these layers, right? So it's the same diagram. But now this time, actually, like I'm bringing all the AWS native tools that we have in place within the platform, right? When it comes to complaints, I'm not going to read out all the names because we are going to touch some of these as we go further. But to give you an idea, this is all native because that's where you get more native integration and more quick agility, because I have seen a lot of customer journeys because security is the long pole in the tent. It takes forever really to bootstrap because a lot of times you don't know where to start. You don't know if you are secure enough, right? You don't know exactly so the question I get, I don't know, right? I don't know, man, how we are doing. But to really, after this presentation, the checklist you get, you should be able to say, I know how to do this checklist at least. So that actually you are covering all these layers so that you have a good security posture using the native tools. Then you can think about how to take it to the next level using any other tooling that you have from the marketplace or from your favorite tools from commercial vendors, okay? So a lot of times customers say, hey, Ramesh, you are showing me that layered reference architecture, that's all well and good. But what is the authenticity for that, right? A lot of times you may follow some standard-based framework like a FedRAMP or NIST CSF, like cybersecurity framework, all that. But ultimately, in my experience, whatever the framework you use, it ultimately comes down to those layers. So that's what we will see. Like for example, if you look at the NIST Cyber Security Framework, CSF, which is very popular framework, a lot of customers I see, almost more than 50%, they're adopting this framework. But if you look into details of the CSF framework, here are the high-level topics in the CSF, really. Like you want to identify what things you want to secure. In our case, it's the layers, right? We want to make sure our network layer, infrastructure layer, and the data layer, and the IAM layer, they're all secure. That's what you need to really identify those layers, and then you protect them. We have to set up the guardrails. That's what we are going to look at in the further slides, how to protect these, the initial layers, and then how to detect, how do you monitor this, and then how do you respond to those, and then how do you recover if there is anything that bad happen in your environment. So basically, like the NIST goes over these topics, but again, we come back to the same tooling. Like if you look at the tooling perspective, again, I'm showing you all AWS native tooling when it comes to NIST CSF framework goes. But these tools, same tools, what we have seen in the previous slide for your layered reference architecture. So there's nothing different, but it's a view is little changed, but you are doing exactly the same. So the bottom line is, when you adopt that layered security architecture, you are meeting a framework-based requirements like either it's FedRAMP or NIST or GDPR. It doesn't matter actually. Like, see, you are addressing some of the framework requirements, but you may have to do some little bit of mapping. But at the end, you should be able to prove to your auditors, hey, I'm doing this in all these layers, and I should be, you are compliant with any of these frameworks. Okay, let's look into some more tactical and more practical details, actually, how do you do this? So here I'm showing you a checklist. The checklist to really serve as a guide so that you will not miss anything, basically. Like, so this checklist should be your reference guide. When you walk out, when you go back to the team, hey, are we doing all these for my account before I hand it over to the prime time? When I say prime time, to your project teams to have fun with it, right? Before you hand over the account to the project teams, this is the checklist I want you to look at and make sure actually you are checking this off, like every box in this checklist. So let's see how we can check off all these things using some of the native services that we have in place. Because the reason I'm showing you this is actually when it comes to network security, we want one centralized VPC management, because VPC is your network boundary within AWS where you will be deploying your workloads, right? You got to have one central team or central management to do the central VPC management, and then you want to have, once you have VPC, you want to have a edge security. That's where the WAF, the web application firewall comes, the centralized WAF. So you want to do from one place, pushing all your WAF rules to do any protection at the edge, basically whether you are launching your CloudFront distributions for your public-facing websites, or if you are launching any ALBs like application load balancers. We really want to push these web application firewall rules from one place. That's what we are targeting, really, centralized WAF, so that you know what rules in action for when you have hundreds of accounts or tens of accounts or thousands of accounts, it doesn't matter. You are pushing these rules from one place. And then centralized guard duty. So guard duty, if you are familiar, it does the IDS kind of capability like intrusion detection service, but it's more intelligent, like a machine learning based flow log detection, and then it can find out what kind of activity happening within your network, within the VPC. So that's the guard duty, but you want to manage from one account. So you want to make one account as the master, but you are turning on guard duty across all your other accounts from one place. Same thing for the other areas too. For infrastructure also, it all starts from AMI. So AMI, if you are not familiar, it is Amazon Machine Image, basically. So it is the source for all your virtual servers that you are launching within AWS, like EC2s, right? So a good source will result in good infrastructure. So good DNA will result in good resources that you are creating within AWS. So making a good AMI using AWS native services from one place and then pushing those AMIs availability for the other accounts, That's what we are targeting here, one central management of AMI using AWS native service. And then once you have the AMI, and then people start launching these EC2 instances, you want to have one central place to manage how you run the vulnerability scans on these instances, and also remediating the patches. Like if those instances are deviating from any of these latest and greatest patches, or if they need any immediate attention in terms of fixing the OS level or application level patches, you are pushing the patching from one place. That's what we are calling one central place to manage the patching for the infrastructure. So that will give you one central way to manage your infrastructure. Then if you go to the right side, you want to have one central place to manage all the identities. Basically like IAM, you want to go towards one central IAM through the federation, whether you are integrating with your directory or bringing your own other identity providers. But we want to do it from one place where you want to manage all your IAM roles for the people, and also one place to manage your IAM policies, so that you are not duplicating these IAM roles everywhere and get out of control at some point, so that you know one source of control for the IAM policies and roles. And then same thing with the operations. So for operations also, we want one place. Again, the theme is one. Theme is central. So we want to have all the directing all the logs into one central place, and then have the monitoring in one place, basically, so that you have one single pane of glass across all your accounts and VPCs. So that's our goal, right? That's a really good goal to have, right? So let's see how we accomplish that. So it all start with the landing zone. So landing zone, again, landing zone is what we started calling it in the last 2 years, but before that also a lot of customers doing landing zone. So landing zone is nothing but, it is a consistent way to create your accounts, basically and a consistent way to create your controls. When you create an account, before you hand it over the project teams, there is a way to bootstrap some of these controls and some of these security things that you want to do. That's what really landing zone helps you. People used to call hey, I want to have a governance, or I want to have a guardrails. So, but they were not calling landing zone that time. But in the last 2 years, we are calling it landing zone. So with all that knowledge we gained, we kind of launched the landing zone solution last year, right? Where when you want to create your account structure, we always prescribe you, hey, use landing zone, because that will give you some of the baseline controls and some of the foundational items that you can bootstrap when you are creating any new account. But when you create landing zone, mostly we come up with the 3 core accounts. That's what we call them. And if you look in the bottom, you have a shared services account to host any shared infrastructure like Active Directory or any DevOps tooling, all that. And then we have a logging account where you want to centralize all the logs, right? And then we have security account. That will be our key focus today. So how security account is going to play a key role in terms of pushing some of these, lot of centralizing security operations. But once you have the core structure, then you have the account vending machine. That is part of a landing zone solution, actually. So where you will be start launching the new accounts using the AVM. So when you launch a new account, the AVM will take care of bootstrapping the account with some of the baseline controls or baseline guardrails, such as turning on config, turning on CloudTrail, putting into central IAM, and centralizing all the logs, and turning on guard duty. So a lot of these things that I've shown you in the checklist, it is going to check a lot of that stuff, actually, like centralizing some of that stuff, right? That was landing zone, but what we realized was a lot of customers really like a landing zone. Then we made it as a service. Now we are calling it Control Tower, actually. So now Control Tower service has gone GA this week, actually. So now it's part of our console. So landing zone solution, we used to give them as a scripts on the sidelines, but now we made all those scripts as part of the AWS console, and now we are calling it Control Tower. So if you are creating a new accounts or new landing zones, you should start using the either landing zone solution or the control tower, actually, because there is no path. Because in landing zone solution, you have more control in terms of customizing some of the things. But in the control tower, you may not have that flexibility, but we will be there soon, right? It's part of our roadmap. So either you're using control tower or landing zone, or you have your own custom way, but the idea is you are bootstrapping the account with a lot of these guardrails before you hand it over to the project teams. Got it? So again, I don't want to really scare you with all the lines that's on this diagram, but the idea is really when you are creating these other accounts, like development accounts or production accounts or pre-prod accounts, as part of your AVM, like account vending machine, you are kind of bootstrapping a lot of stuff as part of when you are creating these accounts and giving it to the project teams, basically. So once you have the landing zone in place, or using landing zone-like solution within your organization, you should be able to check some of these boxes now. Actually, like, hey, now I have a central VPC management, because AVM is where you are creating new VPCs, right? With all the required subnets and all the required pairing, all that. And then you have, you centralize the guard duty, because from landing zone, you are turning on the guard duty and controlling which accounts we need guard duty. And with landing zone, you are also centralizing your IAM, because landing zone solution come with a single sign-on capability, where you can tie that to your Active Directory so that you are managing all your IAM roles and policies from one place to push it into all these other accounts you are managing. You don't have to create these IAM roles independently and then go out of control and also go out of balance in terms of, hey, for this role I have this policy here. Is this the same policy here? So you don't have to go worry about all that. So because you are managing everything from one place. That's what really, landing zone really checking off that. And then when it comes to operations, it is also centralizing the logging. So it is pushing everything into one log account we created, and then all the config rules are turned on, all the config data is going into one. So if you are not familiar with config, so config is really capturing all the, it's like a simple CMDB. So we are capturing all the state of every resource you are creating, and then we are taking a snapshot it, and then we are keeping the whole metadata out of that resource. Basically, that way you can go back and replay what changed, who changed, when it changed, and everything you can replay so that it's a good audit evidence. So we are turning on all the config and config rules for you. And then, so we check a lot of stuff already just by using the landing zone. Right? Just to give you an idea, let me switch to my demo. So what we are talking here actually, like, so, right. So this is my landing zone, right? This is my master account where I'm creating my accounts using my vending machine. So let me show you a vending machine, how the vending machine would look like in terms of creating my the new accounts. Right, so I go to service catalog, and then when you deploy the landing zone solution, it comes with a service catalog with a product called vending machine, account vending machine. So I can go to my product list, and then it is really called account vending machine, right? So you can say, hey, launch product, and then you'll say next. I have to give it some name, and then when you hit next, so it's going to bring up a few things. Hey, what is the account name you want to create? What is the email ID you want to use? And then what is the network type? That's what I'm calling the VPC setup in terms of, hey, what kind of VPC you need, like you want to public or private, or how many subnets you want, all that you can pick. And then you want any, you can allocate CIDR range and then pairing. And then once you fill all this and then hit, it is going to go and launch the account. And also, not only launching the account, it's going to bootstrap a lot of these controls. So let's look at what the basic controls it's going to create is, like it's going to create a config. It is going to turn on the config and then config rules. Because if you look at my config, Right, if you look at my S3 bucket it is writing to, it is all going to a central bucket actually, like so 720, like for your reference, these are my accounts. And then if you look at 720, that's my log account, because I want all the logs to route there. No matter if I'm running from 10 accounts or 15 accounts or 20 accounts, all the logs, my config logs and CloudTrail logs, everything going into my log account, right? So that's what I'm doing. And then if you look at guard duty also turned on. And then I made my security account is the master. Like if you look at the 0650, so 0650 is my security account here. So I made my security as the master. That's what my landing zone did already. And if you look at CloudTrail is also going to the bucket in the logs account actually. So with that, you can see that the landing zone really started the checklist, right? Let's go back to my So then comes your infrastructure. So now you checked off a few things on the checklist. Let's look at how you manage the central infrastructure security to check off more checklist items, right? The AMI management, as I said, the key to have a good infrastructure or good EC2 instances within your account is all starts from good AMI. So the AMI, we launched golden AMI pipeline. You can see that golden, I'm providing you a link there. So because this deck will be available for you later. So that golden AMI pipeline, you can centralize. I'm using my security account as the golden AMI producer so that you can follow the solution. All you have to do is actually launch the golden AMI pipeline in the security account, and then it will set up few automation documents as part of the systems manager, because we are going to use the service called systems manager, and then we are going to use automation of systems manager to really create the golden AMIs, whether it's Linux AMIs or Windows AMIs, that's what we are going to use. And then from that central account, you can share the golden AMIs with all other accounts. So when your project teams are launching any of these EC2 instances, they have to, or they will be forced to use those AMIs, and that's what you will make them available. If they don't use it, your config rule should catch it, and then will provide you some visibility into your dashboard. We will look into how the dashboard will look like, right? So this diagram is that's what it is showing actually. Hey, here is a process to create the golden AMI, and then once you create the golden AMI, and then you are sharing with all your accounts so that they are not using any AMI, but not your only golden AMI. That's what they're forced to, right? And then, because the golden AMI, when you will be creating as and when there is a new marketplace AMI available from your vendor, or because because the whole AMI process, the golden AMI process should follow your standards in terms of how to harden these operating systems and what kind of tooling you want to load, and then you make the snapshot of it, and then you publish that as an image so that all your projects will be using that source to launch their EC2 instances. But that golden AMI is one thing, but a lot of times your project teams, once it's launched, a lot of times they may not go back and release the new version for months, or maybe a few weeks, or maybe sometimes years. I've seen some customers, they don't go back and even launch the infrastructure for years, right? At some point, you will be deviating from your operating system patching. You will be running behind a lot of the patching. So you need some central patching to do some patching in place, because every time you may not replace the golden image and get the new infrastructure to put your project on. So sometimes you may have to patch them in place. So to do that, again, from security account, we are going to run all our patching operations in terms of centralizing. We know actually like which servers are out of state when it comes to patching, and you are controlling from one place to push these patching by taking some maintenance windows based on the business requirements. That's what this diagram is really showing you is, I know which servers will be out of state or running behind the patching, and then I'm using my central account to start the patch manager and take some maintenance window and apply these patches so that my infrastructure is really up to speed. So whether you're using latest and greatest AMI, or we are patching. You are doing it from one central place to make sure your instances are up to speed. And again, this is another view really to think about how to do this centralized patching from our security account. So then comes centralized Macy. So you may be thinking, hey, why I need Macy? So Macy is the data leak detection service based on our machine learning algorithms, mainly S3. Because we have seen a lot of customers putting some sensitive data, unencrypted, or leaking some data like your AWS keys, access keys into S3 buckets or some public repositories. That's where actually the Macy service helps you to really scan your S3 buckets and public repositories to identify if you have any valuable information that you need to secure, or if your buckets are public or something. But we want to turn on Macy from one central place and have the visibility what's going on in terms of your data leak. So that's where the centralized Macy really comes into the picture. Then comes centralized WAF. Okay, I took care of my infrastructure from one central place. Now I'm taking care of my data scans in my S3 buckets and in the public repositories from one place. Then comes WAF. So WAF is also really to protect your edge whenever any of your accounts, because your applications, whether they're doing any web applications or microservices or any public-facing websites or mobile apps, they have to launch CloudFront distributions, or they may be using some load balancers with ALBs or ELBs. So you got to really making sure any public-facing edges, you are pushing your WAF rules from one place. That's where really one centralized WAF comes into the picture. Again, we are going to use our security account to manage all your WAF rules from one place, and then you are pushing these rules across these accounts, and as soon as someone launches a new ALB or new CloudFront distribution, these rules will be plugged in automatically into all these accounts. So you don't have to really go around and enforce these rules, so because those rules will be enforced there. So that's what we are talking here, managing security account and using security account to push these WAF rules across these other accounts. And let's go back to our checklist again, right? So now, if you see, we have checked off more boxes here, actually. So we have a centralized WAF, and then we have centralized inspector and patching, because you turned on the centralized systems manager in the 2 slides back I showed you, but we are going to look at it. But now you have a centralized AMI build, centralized inspector to do your vulnerability scans, and you have a centralized patching through one central account, basically like across all your infrastructure. And then we have a centralized Macy too. So we are doing good so far, right? So we have centralized a lot of things so that whenever there is a new account coming up, we are kind of checking off these boxes at some point immediately. So let's switch to a quick demo on how those will look like, how the centralized SSM and Macy and WAF would look like. Okay, back to console. So right now I'm in the master account. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go to my security account, because my security account is what I made my master for all my security operations. So let me switch to my security account row. So now I'm in the security account. So I think let me go back to the master. When I say master, that's the master payer account that you will be launching all these other accounts. So let me show you actually how single sign-on would look like, in case if you haven't seen it, in terms of how to centralize these IAM from one central place. So here, I'm managing access to all my accounts from one single place. Like you can see that I have my production accounts, my security account, and my non-production accounts, everything. And I'm also pushing IAM roles from one place. Like, hey, if I need a DBA role or some network admin role, any role that you are creating for your organization, you are creating at one place, and you are pushing which accounts that should go to. And then I'm creating my permission sets. Like when I say permission sets, these are the permissions. Hey, this role should have this IAM policy. So that is also you are creating at one place, and then you are pushing it into these all other accounts. So you are not really duplicating these policies and roles across your accounts. So that makes your IAM maintenance really easy. Okay, let me go back to my security account. Okay, so from the security account, let me show you Systems Manager automation. How would it look like? So when you use our AMI Golden Pipeline solution to set it up in the security account, that will create something called documents. So in the Systems Manager world, the documents are nothing but actually like these are the scripts that you are making to do AMI build, and also sharing with other accounts, and also to do some regular scans. So using the solution, when you set up, let's go to documents in the Systems Manager. I misspelled it, but that's okay. But if you look at these documents, the one document it will create you is really this Golden AMI automation document. So this is what really, when you run this document, you can trigger this document based on certain, hey, when there is a new marketplace AMI, when there is a new Linux or Windows base images are available, you will run this document. You will kick off this document to make the Golden AMI for your standard. But they all come here, and then you execute it. Basically, like you can execute it manually here, or you can automate it, or you can schedule it so that these documents run, and then your Golden images are available, and then you share it with these other documents. And then there is another document called, there is another document called copy and share. So this document you will use from one account, from your central security account, to share. Once your AMI is ready, you will share that with these other accounts, so that when anyone is launching these EC2 instances, they will be using the latest and greatest AMI from their individual accounts. And in the same security account, let's look at Macy. Right. So as I said, Macy is the one really scanning all the S3 buckets and any public repositories and your S3 posture in terms of whether they are private, public, and also it is very intelligent service. So a lot of times, if any business data leaks into your S3 bucket, like your credit card numbers or any phone numbers or email addresses, some of these PII data that leaks into Macy, it can detect those patterns, and then immediately it can alert you, hey, there is a sensitive data that you need to take care within your environment, actually, right? But if you look here, actually, like what I want to show you here is, if you look at your integrations, so here you are turning on all the accounts from one place. So one place, I'm turning on Macy for my production and non-production and development and sandbox. No matter which accounts you have in your environment, you are managing all the Macy scans from one place. And then similarly, I want to show you WAF. If you go to WAF, so again, I'm still in the security account. I'm looking at the WAF. So we have a firewall manager. That's where you go. And then you can push, actually, like you can set up your firewall rules in terms of what, and also DDoS. like denial of service rules, like using our service called Shield. So you are pushing WAF rules and the Shield rules from one place to all the accounts, basically. Like, so any public-facing endpoints you have, CloudFront and ALB, these DDoS and WAF, it will be plugged in automatically so that you are securing any public-facing endpoints from one place, basically. Like, so you can see that actually like all my accounts I'm managing from here, so that you are controlling. You made this security account as your master account, and then you are controlling the push of these rules across these accounts. Okay. Once you have took care of the centralizing a lot of this stuff like infrastructure and the logging and some of the IAM, everything you centralize now into one account, and then you have a good visibility across your landscape. So the next thing we will be doing, last thing, is monitoring. We want to do monitoring and controlling one place. That's where really the security hub comes into picture. Again, we are going to use our security account as the hub for all our security monitoring, because you turned on the inspector, you turned on the Macy, you turned on the guard duty, you turned on the WAF. So you turned on a lot of everything across all these accounts from one place, your security account. So once you turn on all these services, they're all feeding into one central security hub where you can see what's happening within my accounts, actually, like in all these aspects, what is happening to my network, what is happening to my infrastructure, what is happening to my data. So everything you kind of turned on, and then you checked all those boxes, and everything is feeding into one central place called Security Hub. And then by going to the Security Hub, you will see the posture, what's happening across all your accounts. I'll go to the demo, but with once you have the Security Hub in place, now you checked actually like the other things too, like centralized monitoring and the centralized Security Hub when it comes to compliance, because Security Hub can help you with identifying your compliance posture also. I will show you how it can help you with some standards-based framework like CIS framework, how it can help you to show you whether you are pass or fail when it comes to CIS benchmarking for all your accounts. So going back to our, again, security account, we are in security account. Let me bring it up, Security Hub. Yeah. So you can see that my Security Hub, when I go to my security account, because that's what we are using as a central control point. If you go to Security Hub, in my security account, you can see that all the accounts I'm controlling, all the accounts that are feeding into this one central hub as far as findings goes. So if you look into the findings, across my 10 accounts or 7 accounts, it will show you actually like what's happening. Hey, what guard duty is telling me, what inspector is telling me, what Macy is telling me, how is my CIS posture, like across my accounts, which account has more failed checks. And then if I want to deep dive, I can see that actually like, hey, CIS checks, if I want to look at the results, I can see that. If you're not familiar, I would recommend you to read more about CIS framework for AWS, which is a very publicly known organization that published a lot of controls, around 40+ controls, but in terms of what a good AWS environment should look like. So you can look at actually like this dashboard and see which accounts are failing and which accounts are passing when it comes to a lot of these checks, like how is my IAM posture is, and how. So there are lots of more controls actually, like you can see. But the point is, you are having one central place to look at your security posture across your accounts as these other services are feeding it actually, like so. And then you can take some actions, like you can automate from Security Hub, you can remediate either by invoking your patch manager or by invoking certain Lambda functions to take immediate actions, or you can notify the teams, you better take a handle on this particular thing. So I want to see everything green here. When your CISO comes to the dashboard, and when your CISO asks for the report, you should be able to go here and generate the report, and then say, we are good. Actually, like, so the goal is to minimize as much as possible any high critical severities on this hub. Okay, so we checked off everything. I think you should feel good about it as of now, right? Because we checked everything, because we are doing everything in a central way and a very controlled way. At this point, you should have a VPC that bootstrapped with a lot of these controls, right? We have good IAM, good networking, good infrastructure, and you should feel good about it. And then at this point, you should stamp it and then push it for the prime time. Hey, project teams, have fun with it, right? Do whatever you want, because I have all my controls plugged in. Now I have one dashboard, I can look at it. If you do anything, deviate from our standards, I can catch you. Right? Once you have the VPC, your job is not done, right? Your job is not done. So now I have VPC, now you open the doors for the project teams, they bring the projects. Maybe they're doing a big data project, or they're doing a website, they're doing a mobile application, or they're doing some kind of containers. It doesn't matter actually. But your goal is, you want to see green in your dashboard. So you educate the teams. That's where actually I think you heard from our CISO, Steve, in the keynote, that you need to partner with your development teams and your operation teams, and you will make a happy family, basically. Like, so you will train them how a new good security should be embedded into their application deployments. So let's look at quickly, like, because for your projects they may be using a lot of, because without compute, your VPC will no meaning, right? They have to bring in a EC2 server, they have to bring in a container, they have to bring in a Lambda to do something, right? To build some business logic. That's where you really need to, like, your VPC was clean, right? Immediately once you open the doors, it becomes, whoo, you will have EC2s coming up, then you have load balancers coming up, and then you have some cloud fronts coming up. So your goal is really, how do I make sure actually like my security is also good, not only my blank VPC, but when people are putting stuff, how do I make sure my security is good? That's where you really need to partner with your CI/CD teams or DevOps teams, your continuous integration and continuous development teams, to make sure you are plugging in security controls in every stage of your life cycle of the deployments, whether it's at the code level, because everything is code in these days, right? Like infrastructure is code, your application is code, so everything is code. So you got to make sure you are embedding security at the code level, and also unit testing level, and the integration testing level. You are making sure security is part of the journey. Like if you look at a typical application, right? Like you have the edge, and then you have the compute, and then you have the storage. Right? Your compute could be your containers or EC2s and your Lambdas, and storage, your databases and your S3s and your DynamoDB, anything that you store. And the edge is where you are keeping the front end, either private facing or public facing edge infrastructure, like load balancers and your cloud fronts. Right? So, but when it comes to security in each of these layers, for a given application, we want to make sure these application teams are knowledgeable in terms of plugging security in each of these layers. Hey, do you have DDoS? Do you have WAF? Because we already turned on, they will get it. But in terms of other things, like consumer identity, like who is accessing your application? Did you take care of IAM for those people, right? When it comes to compute, same thing, like do you have the right firewalls? Do you have good secrets management? Are you life cycling the passwords and all that? So, and then we have a lot of native tooling to address everything as part of the project team's life cycle. So that's where you security folks need to educate the application teams. Hey, you should look at some of the AWS native tools to make your application more secure, so that it is a good citizen on top of what we already built a good VPC. So it's a pipeline, right? Everything should be pipeline. again, whether you are launching infrastructure or launching your application. And then as part of the pipeline, you are doing a lot of static code analysis and a lot of that stuff, actually, like to catch a lot of that stuff up front. Because you don't want to detect, you want to protect a lot of that stuff up front. So that's where you need to really go with automation as part of your DevOps pipeline. So you got to put things in place. And then I have some references here, what you can borrow when it comes to security, what you can do at the commit phase, whether you're using Git or whether you are using our own Git repository called code commit, it doesn't matter. But we want to do some static code analysis to make sure whatever they are launching as part of the cloud formation or Teradata or whatever the scripting they're using, we want to make sure, yeah, they are encrypting their EBS volumes and they are using right firewall rules. They are using good AWS IAM service-to-service roles. So if you see something going out of whack, you will stop the pipeline right there, right? So let me show you a quick example on that. Right. So in this case, I'm using, again, same security service, right? I have a code pipeline because you may not do this here because you may have a pipelines, your DevOps pipelines running from your shared services account, but for the demo sake, I'm using the same security account to launch my pipelines to create the application-specific infrastructure or application-specific deployments. Right. So right now, yeah, I'm switching to my production account. That's where I set up my pipeline. Give me 1 second. My session is timed out. So when you go to the production account where my pipelines are operating from, so by this time you already teamed up with your DevOps teams and you embedded security good practices in them. And if you look at a simple pipeline, a typical pipeline should look like this. Have a commit phase where these development teams will be committing their code, whether it's infrastructure code or application code. Then I have a static code analysis step. So in this example, I'm using Lambda to do the static code analysis because we, as a AWS community, we contributed a lot of Lambda functions to do the static code analysis. But there are a lot of open source plugins that you could use as part of the pipeline to do the static code analysis, to do obvious checks like, hey, is my SSH is open, or port is open, EBS volumes are encrypted. So everything at the cloud formation level. So if you look at this, the static code analysis step is failed. And if I look at the details, it is saying it is failed because my ingress is open to the world. So that is bad. That's what I educated my development teams. That's what they really put as a static code analysis, and the developer checked in their code, and then it stopped the pipeline. So that's what you want to see to happen, so that it doesn't really end up in the test your dev environment or test environment, and then show up in your dashboard. So this is more of preventive measures up front. And then once everything passes, it goes to the test deployment. So maybe you have a VPC, test VPC. That's where you deploy this application first. And then you do run some checks. So as part of that, you do some validations right there. I do run some tests as part of my test in the lower environments. Once my tests pass, then only I'm allowing it to go to the next level, which is like a production, the production deployment. So the idea here is really you are partnering. You as a security professional, you are partnering with your operations and development teams, and you are making them as a good citizens to put their controls in place, whether it's at the code level or after the deployment level. But your goal is your security hub dashboard should be green all the time, right? That's the goal. That's the wish list. So let me switch back to my. So with that, you are educating them how to do different testing as part of their CI/CD, so that now you have You have a loaded VPC with the application deployed in the blank VPC, but you should feel good about it because it will be approved because it has a stamp from you, actually, that your VPC is stamped by you, and then once you give it to the project teams, it is stamped by you saying that is a good posture. But you are doing this from one central place or central places where you have different controls in terms of how you can manage this AWS, so that when your CISO asks you a question, hey, how is AWS environment doing? You should be able to say, I don't know, but you should be say, I know it, and we are good. And then you should be able to give him a report with one click. So that's the goal. So with that, thank you for attending. And please feel free to fill the feedback. Thank you.